G'day, Keithy here. Thanks for joining me again. Quick video for you today. Little bit of a mechanical tip. If you do your own work on your car or four-wheel drive, this is something that I think you might be interested in. So as you know, I do 99.9% of the work on my own car. There's only very few things that I don't actually do myself, and most often that's if I run out of time, I farm them out to my gracious mechanic who happily assists me with the things that I need to get done. So stay tuned.
Well, we couldn't go without checking this out.
Right, preparing it tyres now. G'day, Keithy here. G'day, Keithy here. G'day, Keithy here. Okay, so how many times have you come across a situation like this? You're going to do your brake discs, you're doing something with the brakes, the front axle, it could be a hub, it could be a CV, it could be anything. And you go to get your brake disc off because that's how it all starts, and this little bloody thing here is stripped. So the last mullet to work on your car has decided to be heavy-handed, thinks he's a hero, and strips the Jesus out of that to the point where you can't get it on. Well, you might be saying this to yourself. Oh yes, I'll use an Allen key. Oh, hang on, my Allen key doesn't fit. Oh yes, I'll use a screwdriver. Oh, hang on, my screwdriver doesn't fit either. Get out, please. This time, it's personal. You know what they say, when all else fails, give it another tap. But you know what, in all honesty, these are the worst design I've ever seen. So let's show you a way of getting around that. First, you've got to get this out, and I can just foresee that that's going to be fun. I'll get this out and I'll show you what we're going to do to fix that problem once and for all. The reason that I'm in here anyway, I probably should get to that. This here, the dust cover. They're very, very noisy on my car because I've just done a trip to Cape York, corrugated roads for 1,000,000 miles and then a few. So I'm going to get in there and I'm actually going to try and secure this dust cover so that when I drive around it doesn't sound like a hillbilly machine from the 1920s. So the first method I usually use when trying to get these things out, a bit of WD-40. That is the best thing you're ever going to use for anything. You can use Inox or other brands. CRC have got a brand as well. Anything of that nature will get in and get that little thread a little bit loosey-goosey with you. What I like to do, don't be shy. Give it as much of that as you can, come back in 5 minutes, give it another hit, come back in another 5 minutes, and then I'll show you one of the many methods you can use to try and get that ugly looking thing out. All right, so I've given this thing a heap of the old WD-40, and I've had a look at the hole, the screw really thoroughly, just to sort of get a feel for what kind of shape it is. There's a million methods. You've probably seen ones that have screw extractors and whatnot, all kinds of different things. Now I thought maybe I could try and get an Allen key to fit in there somehow, but it's just not close enough to an Allen key to use. So what I've done is I've got myself a screwdriver that I don't like a lot, and I found myself a tiny bit of room to start smashing it in there with a hammer. And I've spent quite some time giving this a hit, just to make sure that that hammer's in there proper, good and proper. And it basically supports, if I let it go, it supports itself. Now, keep in mind, it's a long one, screwdriver. I've been saying spanner. Screwdriver. So it's a very long one, so it's going to try and fall out of here. I can't get a Dremel or anything in here because it's countersunk. There's no tools that I can get in to change this. So this is what I've done here. This has worked for me in the past, and I've worked on heaps of cars with things like this. So we know it's in there and it's got a reasonable grasp, but it's just too much that I can't quite get it with my hand. So the other option is to get out a shifter, because if you look on the end of your screwdriver, you'll notice that it's got a flat side, and you can actually get a shifter around that, or a spanner, or whatever you want. Now this here is a fantastic tool for this kind of job because it's got a very narrow tip, so it fits into an area like that just perfectly. Now let's see if that's going to be enough to get this out. Need to make sure to keep good pressure on the end here, and you don't want to put your spanner too far in. heaps of pressure, and here we go. We're going to try and do this. Yep. Oh, got it. So there we go. I've just cracked that. Here she comes. And that, just looking at it, isn't even straight. That little screw looks like it's been bent over the years. Now, is there a way to stop that from happening? Well, I need to move this from the camera. Yes, there is. Why anyone would want to use a friggin' Phillips head on something like that is beyond me, because it's the worst place to put it. You're better off with something like this. Go and get yourself an Allen head, because there's quite a lot of depth for your Allen key to sink into in order to get that off if you need to, and there's less chance you're going to strip it again. But if you're doing things like this on brakes, I definitely highly recommend, instead of just reusing these things every time you do it, go and buy a packet of them, and every time you take this out, replace it. And just keep these ones in as spares, just in case, but replace it, and that will guarantee that every time you go to do this job in the future, you've got a brand new head in there, you've got a brand new surface to try and get that thing out from. So that was a win right there. That's loose now to the point where I can undo it with my hand. Why am I doing this? Well, okay, I'm actually going to take these dust covers off and see if I can fix them up, because they're actually quite rattly after the Cape York trip. So I'm going to see what I can do about that to stop the rattle. But before I even worried about taking the brake rotors off, the calipers off, I thought I'd give that a go, because that's quite a job in itself. It's not, but you'd rather know that you're going to be able to get the brake disc off before you take all this off, because it's going to waste a lot of time putting it back on if you need to. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you got something out of this video. I mean, it's just one way. If you do the YouTube search, there's 1,000,001 ways to remove screws that are buggered, but this is just the way that I do it. And that was in there quite tight too. It's not your normal household screw that you can just get out with by hand. It was actually quite in there. It's a tapered screw. Just one way that I do it, and I hope I've helped you out anyway.